Timmerman of Muskegon, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of Grand Valley State University. Now, Mr. Timmerman, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? To start with, where and when were you born?
I was born on the corner of Alpine Avenue in Grand Rapids. Youngest of 6 children. 2 of my brothers and sisters were old to be my parents. So I was alone a lot, like my son. My dad used to work on the road and he was gone a lot. So every time he'd come, he'd try to make up for what he was gone. He'd buy me the first pair of long pants and the first bicycle. But I was an envy of all the kids, which wasn't my fault, you know.
Right.
January
Then,
26th.
I saw a girl that come in, 15 years old. I was 17. First time I ever saw her, I said, that's my girl. And that's the way it was, 67 years.
All right. Now, did you live in Grand Rapids the whole time you were growing up?
Yep. Well, then my mother got real bad. I went to Hurtgen Forest school. My mother got real heart condition. She had an ingrown goiter or something. And we moved to North Park when I was in the 7th grade, I think.
All right.
And then after that, the life went on.
Okay.
When I went in service,
Now,
my wife,
yeah.
I got married before I went in service.
Okay. Now, did you finish high school?
Oh, 1931, Union High.
All right. So, you graduate from high school. Then, after you graduated from high school, what did you do? What work did you do?
Well, I worked on the road with my dad, and I worked in the American Seating Company. And I took machine shop in school, and when this new big General Motors plant that they're going to close in Grand Rapids,
Yep.
I could have started there when there was stakes in the ground as a maintenance man, because this machine shop teacher had connection with the guy that did the hiring. But I didn't. I'd rather worked on the road, be a young guy, with my dad, so I turned the job down.
All right. Now, when you were working on the road, what kind of work did you
Installing
do?
theater chairs, baseball stadiums,
Okay.
churches, auditoriums, schools,
All over the country.
All right. And where did you go to do that?
all over.
So, what parts of the country did you go to?
Wife and I went out west for about 8,200 miles. I worked in Comiskey Park, I worked in Cubs Park, I worked in Navy Field, that's Tiger Stadium today. Columbus Redbirds, Cincinnati Cardinals, or the Toledo Art Gallery was a beautiful place. The Cleveland Stadium. Oh, I've been around.
All right. So,
And
were you able to keep that job all through the 30s? So you didn't.
Well,
You have the Depression going on and all of that.
yeah, well, then it was tough, you know. Then I got a job to Kelvinator. I worked. It's kind of hard to. I cut wood for $1 a day. Dug septic tanks. Anything to make a buck.
All right. Now, in what year did you get married?
1939, December the 2nd.
All right.
After 10 years, they said it was never last. She was a Catholic and I wasn't.
All right. Now, did you buy your own house, or did you?
Pardon?
Where did you buy your own house, or did you just rent somewhere, stay with parents?
She lived with my dad while I was overseas. And then when I got out of service, we bought that business in Croton Dam with a partner. But then they closed us on Sunday where we couldn't operate and there wasn't enough. So the women drove straws, and my wife won. So we wound up in Croton, and that's it.
Okay. Now.
61 years in Croton.
Right. Now, back in 1939, you got married. Now, not too long after that, the war starts in Europe. You've got Hitler going into Poland and all of that kind of thing. Before Pearl Harbor, were you paying any attention to what was going on in the world? Did you know there was a war on and that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I had 2 brothers in World War I. And they told me all about it, you know.
All right. And were you expecting that we would get into what became World
I never
War II?
thought I'd get drafted. There was 10 couples of us,
Right.
and 5 of the guys never went in because they had connections.
Right.
You know, I didn't.
Yeah. But you were just young enough to be drafted.
I was 29.
All right. Now, what was your reaction when you got your draft notice?
Well, another story. I was out west with wife, measuring theaters, 52 theaters. And on the way home, I had to register for the original draft in Lincoln, Nebraska, because that was 15th of September, 1940. And when I got there, the woman said, "Don't worry about it. You won't hear about it for 6 months." You know what? The first night that Stinson pulled the fish globe, I was number 13, and so was my buddy. But we were in different boards. He went in right away, and I stayed out because I was married. But I expected sooner or later to be called. you
Right.
know.
Now, do you remember hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, that's another deal, another thing, see? I was working in Northwestern University in a big building there, putting school desks in. And we were driving it was on a Sunday morning, and we were driving to Chicago when they came over the air. And when we got to Chicago, they had the bridges under guard already. And that was the day that's how fast they operated on us. And the wife and I spent the whole night that night listening to the radio about Pearl Harbor. That's
Right. But then, now, did things change for you at all after Pearl Harbor?
What do you mean?
Well, were there still jobs to do and you could just keep going to work?
Pardon?
Well, after Pearl Harbor, was there still just work? Could you still just work your job and do the same things you did before?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I worked.
And then
I
finally,
wound up on the road working with my dad,
Right.
and my brother.
and then in early 1943, was that when you got your draft notice?
I was drafted. I don't remember when I got the draft notice,
Right.
but I was drafted in March of 1943.
Right. Okay. Now, when you were drafted, where was the first place you went?
Camp Grant. No, I was sworn in Kalamazoo.
Right.
Then we went to Camp Grant, and they issued us ODs. I had a beautiful suit, green pinstripe suit, and I threw it in the waste. They said, "Get rid of it," so I threw it in a big barrel. And they gave us ODs, which is heavy winter. Supposedly, they told us we were going to be ski troops.
Right.
We wound up in Camp Butler, North Carolina, with these heavy, hotter than Hades, and they took us on our big march and hike the first damn month, first night with all them heavy clothes on. But 78th Division, all it had in it was cavalrymen. It was a brand new division, and that's how I was lucky to get in there. Actually.
All right. Now, when you got to your camp in North Carolina and you're joining the 78th Division, when you got there, were you part of the first group of men to come and fill out the division?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And they picked me out. They give you a test. And I had a bunch of guys working me a lot of times. And they give you piles of stuff, how to figure out how many are in there. Well, I was used to that because, and I got to be one of the cavalrymen. And I wound up a squad leader with 12 young guys under me. And I went through 4 basic trainings. Did you ever hear of ASTP?
Yes.
Well, my last group of boys were ASTB guys they took out of college. My first scout was a PhD from Harvard. My BAR man was an engineer from MIT. My second scout was a engineer from Minnesota. There was all those kind of guys. They didn't know nothing. They were smart, but they didn't know nothing.
All right. Now, were these guys who joined you in North Carolina, they became part of your unit there, or were they replacements?
They were replacements because this Baldwin, who was my first scout, he went in intelligence. They found places for a lot of these guys, But I went overseas with about half of them.
Okay. I would like you to tell me about the different stages of the training. The first part, just the initial basic training you had.
Well,
what kind of stuff did you do?
Military marching and stripping your rifle down in the dark and military discipline. By the way, about MacArthur. You heard about him, don't you? He didn't retire. You heard about that? He was canned. Okay, you know about that. Okay.
Yeah, but he wasn't your general, so.
No, he was canned.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Truman canned him,
Right.
period.
Right. But that's somebody
No,
else's
but that
story.
was something else,
Yeah.
because if they let him get away with it, why would you have to shoot a second lieutenant on the sidewalk? See? You gotta have army discipline. If you don't have it, what do you got?
Okay. Now, did the men that you were training alongside, did they adjust pretty well to the Army?
Well, a lot of them are babies I'll call them babies, but when they left, they were men, you know? They were broken. Every morning, they'd line the whole group up and walk the whole piece of property over, picking up cigarette butts, and that's discipline, you know? Before we'd even eat, they'd have those kids pick, and we all had to go with them, naturally, but that was, and they wound up men.
All right. So pretty quickly then, if you joined the cadre, you were helping to train the other men, is that right? Okay.
And I talked to the general twice. He asked me if I thought they were getting enough training, and I told him no. So what happened? All us guys wound up the weekend peeling potatoes. And the other kids out working.
All right. Now, you said you had 4 different stages of training. You had a basic training first, and then what came after that?
Oh,
Was
it all came.
just
I
infantry
just don't
training?
remember how that
Yeah.
happened. You
Okay.
know.
About how long did you spend training in North Carolina? About how long were you there?
Well, I was 19 months going through the training. I was in camp from North Carolina. We went on Tennessee maneuvers, and from there we went to Camp Pickett, and that's where I met all these ATP boys. On my 4th time around, that was in Camp Pickett, Virginia.
Right. Now, the ASTP, now some of the people who watch this interview won't know what that was. So can you tell us what that was?
Army, Special Training Program.
All right. And what was it supposed to be for? Why were you putting these college guys into it?
Well, now here's an example. This one kid, big guy, carried a football with him all the time. He studied Japanese language for 3 months on ASTP, and he wound up in Germany. And when he went in a Hurtgen Forest, he was carrying his football, and his favorite speech was, "What's up, Doc?" And he was killed the next day, probably carrying his football. And even though the Army trained them or what for things, they wound up, because they were short of men,
Right.
they wound up in the infantry.
Right.
So that's all I can tell you.
All right.
I don't know.
So, okay. So by the time well, tell us a little bit about the Tennessee maneuvers. What were they? What did you do?
Just fighting the enemy, supposedly. They were, the other half of the outfit was the enemy. Some other division. Part of the division was the enemy, see.
Yeah.
And it was wet. Oh my God, we it was a slushy snow. We had a full fuel pack. It was that big around. It was a mad. I suffered more from the weather than I ever did overseas. That's right.
All right. Now, when you completed your training, you go to Camp Pickett. Now, did you ship out from Norfolk, or did you go? Where did you leave the
New
United?
York. See,
Did you go up to New York, or did you leave from Virginia?
well, we shipped out of New York
Okay.
at night in the Carnaman Castle. It was an English raider that had been converted to a troop ship. There was 5,000 guys on there, and we were on guard duty below deck, so I didn't see the old lady when we left. But it was night, so nobody saw it.
All right. Now,
What else?
was that the first time you had been on a big boat, or been out on the ocean?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh no, I went across Lake Michigan,
Yeah.
but that wasn't as big as the Carnaman Castle was up, and it had 8-inch guns on it. And every day it would drop out of the convoy with a destroyer for a target practice. You know, and then to get you back in, we'd get back into the.
All right.
That's all we know is what they told us. They had
Okay.
you know.
Now, what time of year were you sailing? When did you
Let me
sail?
see. We landed in La Havre. We were in. Let me think. Well, it wasn't bad weather. It was good weather because we landed in Bournemouth, England, and we were there for 2 weeks. And they had all these beautiful homes, all converted for us guys. They had plywoods on all the floors. And then we left Bournemouth, which is they call it the Atlantic City of England. And we got on a boat by the boat we came across from the Carnaman Castle. And when we crossed on, the English Channel was the Guy Kibbe Castle. same English. And all we had was English mutton. That's all we had to eat was mutton. And we landed in Le Havre.
All right.
And the harbor was full of sunken ships. And is that what you want to know? Or?
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Okay, it was we landed on a flat pontoon. And we walked up the main street of Le Havre, and one kid in my squad said, "You see that banged up house over there?" I said, "Yeah, well, that's the house I was born in. How about that?"
Wow.
So then they
do
put us
you-
in that was the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And they put us in an open field, and it started to rain cats and dogs. And here we got pup tents. And here we had those damn pup tents pitched in mud. And it rained all day, and we had our Thanksgiving dinner the next day with that much water in your mess kit. Then we all went back to our pup tents and tried to eat. Well, it was more like soup than it was Thanksgiving. And after that, we got on a train, 40 and 8.
Right.
We were jammed in there and we drove to, they rode to Tongeren, Germany. We got to our Tongeren, Belgium. And we got there at night. And all of a sudden we saw this thing go across the sky like this. We thought it was a bomber coming back on fire. It was a buzz bomb, well, which we never heard of before, you know. And it was all landing in Liège, Belgium, which is behind us.
Right.
We were safe, but those doggone things, you could hear them coming, and they were real slow. You could see them, you know. And we found out the people there, all their animals were above them. They lived on the bottom, and all the animals were above. Let's see, what else? This all coming back to me now.
Yeah. Now, the place where you got off the train, is this Tongeren, was that like a village or?
I don't know.
Oh.
All they told us was
Just the name.
Tongeren, Belgium.
All right.
Belgium.
And then did you stay there for a while or did they move you up to the front?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, we were told to go to Hurtgen Forest. We leave the 8th Division, which suffered a heck of a lot of casualties in that forest because mortar shells hitting the treetops.
Right.
And when we went in our baptism of fire, we call it, we went in this aisle that was all cleaned out for mines. There was a stack of dead GIs like plywood or like wood on one side of it, and then dead Germans on the other side. And then just for the heck, when I walked over and looked at one of them, he didn't have any dog tags. So how do they know who he was? You know, he might have, because a lot of guys used to get rid of them because they rattle. They didn't know enough to take, you know, dog tags. And then, what else? And right after we got there, now this is something too. A guy named Cherry, I got this marked down. He was in the next squad for me, next squad, or next
Platoon?
not next squad, but the next. Well, anyway, just a little bit maybe from here to those cars over there. And what he had done, his name was Cherry. He had a hand grenade fall out of his belt. It fell on the ground, and he fell on it and saved his buddies. I heard the explosion, and I heard what happened. Now, just lately, I read where a guy got the best award in the world because he fell on a grenade and saved his buddies' lives. This kid did the same thing and nothing ever happened. Nothing, you know. His name was Cherry. I remember his name. How do they call it?
It was the Medal of Honor?
Right.
Yeah.
This guy got the Medal of Honor for falling on a grenade and saving his buddies. And this kid never.
Yes, the officer should have reported it.
Well,
All right. Now, how long was it before you got up into the front line?
we were in the front.
You were in the
lines.
front line.
They
Now,
took, this is something too, Bob knows about this. I always picked my squad because I had a good bunch of guys. And they put us on a patrol in Hurtgen Forest at night. How can you go through there quiet, you know? We were making so much noise that the Germans started throwing mortars at us. Well, I heard this damn thing hitting a tree above me, and I thought, it landed right this far from my head. It was a dud. It just went, oh my God, I thought this was it, you know. But it was a dud. It wasn't my time. But so many guys, a lot of American boys got killed at Hurtgen Forest. Then they took out of Hurtgen Forest. We were going to go arrest bears, supposedly on for arrest. We got on a truck, and they turned the truck around, and we went through the Remagen Bridge. You ever heard of that one?
But that would have been several months
that
later.
shortened the world by 2 years.
Right.
That big bridge.
Okay. But you've kind of skipped over a lot of time there, though. Because if you get to the Hurtgen Forest around the 1st of December or so, and Remagen is in March,
Yeah.
and there's the Battle of the Bulge and stuff
Yeah.
like that in between.
I was in the bulge too. Everything happened, and I brushed my teeth in snow. And the guy said, "You nut, you might be dead tomorrow." Well, I said, "I don't care, you know." But look at me, no teeth. The damn German snow did it. Okay.
Heard of the Hurtgen Forest?
Oh, sure.
But then we got on that bridge, and here stands a brigadier general. "Get across the bridge, you SOBs, you southern ass." Never forget that. And I never knew the Rhine River was so wide and so fast. And we ran across the bridge, and we went undercover. We had to wait so we could move out at night, so they told us. And the reason I found out it was so fast, a couple of bombers flew over, German, and everybody shooting at him. He finally, when that thing hit the water, in 5 minutes it was gone. That's how fast that river was. I never knew the Rhine was. Oh yeah, well, how would you know?
Right.
What a current in that.
Now, do you remember how bad was the bridge damaged when you were
Oh
there?
no, it was brand. See what they had it all wired, but we beat them to it. Now, I was a 2nd Infantry Company across that bridge, so I know I ran it the whole width of it. The C Company was ahead of us, and they put him in the mountains. They put them in the mountains to the right, and they put us up the shore of the river. And that bridge, all the trucks were. Oh yeah, there was trucks and everything going across it. It didn't collapse for how long afterwards, but it was all wired to blow. But we beat them to it. We got there before they did.
Weren't there craters sort of at the ends of the bridge? Didn't they try to blow it and it didn't work?
That didn't stop anything because there was trucks going there. I was a 2nd Infantry Company across that damn thing.
Didn't you tell me there was something in the way? Wasn't there something in the way? Didn't you tell me one time?
Oh yeah, there was a German, or there was a colored guy. This is no lie either. He was trying to start a German motorcycle in the middle of the bridge with a whole damn truck rolled behind him. Honest, I never forgot that either. I told Bobby that. Yep. And then when the time came, here's this watch comes in handy. I'll show you this too. We were all issued one of these when we shipped overseas. Every squad leader got one. That's with the Mercury, or what do you call it? You could see at night. What do you call it? Well, anyway, that night we laid low all day, and we wanted us to move out at night. It was pitch black, and it was so dark that you couldn't see anything. So each one of us, each squad leader, and the company commander had one, and one down the line, and I had one, and we put like this. Then the guy behind me put his arm on my shoulder and till the next squad, and then the next squad leader had one of these, and he'd do the same thing. So then that's Army issue, you know. And I carried it all through the war. Now there's something else too. I knew that when we got on the ship, they really shook us down for federal property when we came home. So I knew this was coming. So I hollowed out a bar of Camo soap and filled it with wax, and there it is. I don't know how many guys did that, but there it is, right there. Let's see what next. Going up.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about what you and your unit did between the time?
What?
Do you know how long you were in the Hurtgen Forest?
What?
Do you know how long you were in the Hurtgen Forest?
Oh God, no. I was 28 days without a shave. I know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And while you were in there, was there a lot of fighting going on, or was it?
Oh, a lot of guys. Well, a lot of.
But mostly patrolling and little
fighting.
stuff.
Germans were in the woods, and we were in the woods, and mortar shells were flying all around there, killed their own men, and we were probably killed a lot of our men, you know. Because that was a bad, a lot of American boys got killed in Hurtgen Forest.
And did your squad take a lot of casualties, or did you lose men there?
Well, I've used 5, I think. And the rest of them were transferred mental, you know. And here I am.
All right.
Well, anyway, what else?
Well, after the Hurtgen
Ask me something else.
Okay. In what way were you involved with the Battle of the Bulge? Were you part of that, or were you still in the Hurtgen Forest when that happened?
Hurtgen was part of the Battle.
Yeah, and it was north of it, but
Yeah. I know one thing, I was in home country, and I was in a hole with a kid, 12 below zero, and we got caught, we went back and identified a couple of guys, my boys, Sergeant Doberly and who's the other one? He was on his knees. I never forget that either, that was tough. Yeah. Let's see what else.
when you were out there, how did you keep? What could you do to keep warm while you were out there?
Well, I tell you what, all I had was combat jackets. Just, we laid a hole back to back. Tried to keep warm that way. And then my boys, I swiped a bunch of socks. They gave us those boots, rubber boots, that were bad on your feet. So I swiped a bunch of socks for my boys. And they had a pair on, and they had a pair pinned in their pants legs. Their body heat would dry them.
Right.
But they stood up by themselves, but they were dry. And none of my boys got trench feet, I'll tell you that. But I don't remember, I swiped a whole bunch of socks, but I don't remember where I got the safety pins. Yeah.
Now, what did they get? What kind of food could you get while you were in the Hurtgen Forest? What kind of food?
What kind of food?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got coffee with ice floating in it. And we got the Cracker Jack boxes, what do you call
Yes,
it?
the K rations.
K-ration, then we got a D bar, which is a big chocolate bar. That's supposed to, but that gives you the GIs. Talk about GIs, better cut that off though. I was in a hole with this kid, 19-year-old kid, and he had the GIs. And I said, why don't you use your steel helmet? When this is all over, you can clean it. No, he said, I would never do that. And he ran someplace and he did it. He came jumping the hole and he said, man, he says, I feel like I was just born. Oh, that didn't get on there, did it?
Sure it did. Yeah. Well, it's 65 years later.
Feel
It's
like I
okay.
was just born.
All right.
Okay, I'm
Now,
sorry.
now, when they moved you out of the Hurtgen Forest,
What?
after you left the Hurtgen Forest, did you go to a rear area where you could take replacements and?
All I know is when we left Hurtgen Forest, like I told you, we were supposed to go to a rest area. And the first thing I know, we were at Hurtgen, at that Remagen Bridge.
Okay.
That's all I.
So they
and
sort of
I don't
turned you
remember
around.
what-
And, now, in the meantime, did you add any replacements, or did you just have the same men you had before?
Oh, replacements. Half the kids I didn't even know, but they all had socks. I saw to that.
All right. Now,
Ask something.
yeah.
Dad, you remember you told me about at the bridge that the Germans had set up the guns in a crossfire?
Oh, well, yeah, that's something
Tell them
else.
about that.
That's something else. It's never been in this book either. Along the shore, they had 20mm cannons set up in wooden crates with piles of ammunition behind it. They were waiting for us to try to cross the river in pontoons or something, you know. And they were all set crossfire. About every 25, well, maybe a little more than that. Maybe 50 feet apart.
Wow.
And there's nothing ever said about that in this book. And I know it because I saw them there, you
All
know.
right. Now, did they fire at the level of the bridge, or were they firing
No,
lower
they were
down?
firing at the crossfire.
Okay. So you were going
See, the
above
bridge now, the bridge was supposed to have been blown out.
Right.
And they thought we were going to come across on pontoons. So they had this crossfire over the river, see? They had to really wipe us out. But they didn't get the bridge, and that's what saved us all. And it shortened the war by 2 years, they told us.
But they never fired the cannons. They were just left there.
Yeah, nothing to shoot at. Yeah. All right. Now, when you're going through Germany and you get across the bridge, did you?
We went up the right up the Rhine, right up the edge of the river, right on the bank.
Right, and then when you moved, you said you moved out from there at night. So you moved out of the away.
Well, I don't remember where we hid during the
Okay.
day.
Yeah,
All I know is we kept shooting at these aeroplanes going over.
right, right. But then,
But I remember this. That saved a lot of guys because if they'd have strayed from the path, God only knows what they'd
Right.
have got into. See?
okay. Now, after that, did you?
Then we
move-
started up the bridge where all those little towns. In Hannaf is where I got hit. I was lucky there.
All right.
And I was walking behind a tank with my squad, which is a private, and the tank took up the whole street. You know, they're narrow, the damn streets are narrow. And we were walking behind a tank, which is a perfect target. And all I remember is a hell of an explosion, knocked me out. And I woke up and had my hand all bandaged up, nothing to it. And the guy said, another inch, you'd lost your hand. Well, it just wasn't, there I go again, it wasn't my time, see? And they wanted me to go back. And I said, no, if I go back, Mary, my wife would get a letter or a telegram or something. I said, nothing to it because, hell, there ain't nothing wrong with me. I can't have a little trouble shooting my rifle. I had a carbine, 15-round carbine I carried, a lot lighter. But I went right on from there.
All
But
right.
I got a Purple Heart for it because that's the way it is. I'm just lucky.
Okay. Now, what did the German towns look like? Were they damaged
They were-
badly, or?
No. And this one, a beautiful home, he was a dentist. And they thought that we were going to shoot him. He'd been ill. And they couldn't be, they weren't surprised. They were surprised. We were such nice guys. And toward the end, we were so close behind our Germans going up there that they'd leave smoking cigarette butts in the ashtrays, and my kids would pick them up and smoke them. That's how close we were behind them. And then at night, they tried to sneak up on us, and the damn dummies, they could march, but nothing up here. If the commander was shot, they were done. They didn't know, all I know how to march and shoot. But anyway, you could hear them coming because they had wooden shoes on these cobblestones. You could sound like a horse coming down the street, you know. You could just sit in there waiting for them. And the first time we got a nice bed to sleep in, I did. Well, we all did. They had a tank sitting right on in front of the house, and they just got through loading it with gas. And the kid lit a cigarette, and a damn fume blew up. And the tank burned all night long. We didn't get a nice, all that ammunition in there was blowing up, you know?
Right.
Yep.
Now, did you see did you see many German soldiers, either as prisoners or anything else?
Not too many, just the ones we captured.
Okay, and what did they look like? How old
Ready
were
to quit. They just throw the rifles and they're on, and the tanks will run over them toward the end.
All right. Now, do you have an idea of how old they were? Were they kids?
Guys like us.
Or they about
And those big Germans, they carry a machine gun like a rifle. Those SS troopers. But all they know is how to shoot. They like these, they like robots. Yeah.
So, did you have SS men surrendering too? Were there SS men surrendering too, or just
Oh
regulars?
yeah. They were all toward the end. They were all mixed up. They were, yeah.
Now, do
So
you,
this is all coming back.
Sure.
It's kind of hard, you know.
now, do you remember what parts of Germany you were in? Were you in the Rhine Valley mostly, or
Where?
where in Germany did you go?
Oh, Hurtgen Forest. We started
Yeah.
up the Rhine River to Bonn.
Okay.
Then we went to Wuppertal, but in the meantime, the Ruhr River, the Schwammel Dam, they had that was a dam like Hardy Dam, an earthen dam. And they had that all wired to blow because they had a lot of rain, and and it was all flooded then, and the American Army was already having trouble. Then if they had blown that dam, they'd have wiped the whole army out. They didn't care about their own people. But we beat them to that too. And my company was the first company on that dam. And it was a big dam just like Hardy. And if they had gone, it would have wiped out the American Army because it would have flooded the whole thing. That's right.
All right.
And
So that's on the Roer River, was that it?
Roar.
Or the
ROER
Ruhr?
or something like
Well,
that.
yeah, ROER, yeah, there were
That's
big
it.
dams there, yeah, that was,
And it was flooded then because of all the rain it had. So that thing behind it, that big body of water behind it would have wiped out everything.
Right.
But they didn't care about their own people. They just wanted us, you know. That's Hitler.
all
That's
right.
right.
Now, did you advance eastward into Germany? Did you stay in Western Germany, or did you go
Oh,
farther
don't
east?
tell me Western Germany. I don't know.
Okay,
I didn't go to Russia or anything.
okay.
No.
So you didn't, your unit did not meet the
I
Russians?
wound up
or-
in Wuppertal, Germany.
All right. And,
That's where I finished it.
okay. Now, in the process of marching in Germany, did you see any prison camps or things like that?
We went through, we went by one of them. I saw some of the guys that they had released, but we didn't have anything to do with it. It was all taken when we got there.
Right. All right. Now, now you were in Wuppertal when the war ended?
Right.
Okay. And what was people's reaction when the war, and they were told the Germans had
I
surrendered?
don't know.
You don't
I don't
remember?
know.
Okay. Do you remember what you did then after the war was over?
After the war, they put us a little Schachten. We were outside of another big town. I forget the name of it. It was in northern Germany.
Okay.
One thing about northern Germany, there was no bugs. Anyway, I went for a walk on a Sunday morning. I walked to that big town from that little town we were in. Schachten was the name of it. And I walked, I don't know how many blocks. There was nothing level. Every basement had water in it. But what was left of all the buildings had a wreath on it for every person that was in there. And the Germans really took care of their cemeteries. Regardless of anything else, their cemeteries were like they were just put in there. They took care, the honest are dead, I tell you that. What I saw of it.
Okay. Now, did you see much of the German civilian population after the war?
Pardon?
Well, did you deal much with the German civilians? Just the ordinary
Well,
people?
here we go again. The German women, the Germans, when they were in France, in Belgium, they took a lot of diamond rings from people, you know, and their wives were wearing them. So this guy I met coming home, he must have been a jeweler, because he had a Bull Durham sack full of diamonds that he had stopped these women that were carrying stolen stuff, wearing stolen stuff anyway, and he had one of those things with him, and it was a good diamond. He got it out of the ring and put it in his bag. And the morning afterwards, we're all ready to go home. He went out drinking. In the morning, here underneath his bunk lays that damn bag full of diamonds. I could have stuck it in my pocket, never know the difference, you know. But yeah, I gave it to him. But I don't know where the guy was from. He was from a tank outfit, I know that. But that's what he did. But that's what they did. They took these rings from women that were French, Belgium, and their wives were wearing them. See? That's
Now, how long did you stay in Germany? Were you there until the fall, or
well. Let's see.
because you got home in early
I got home in
46?
January,
Yeah.
16th.
All right.
I went in March and I was discharged in Jan. So Germany must. I shipped out of Bremerhaven, and Prince Eugen was another German raider.
Right.
And they hunted all over for that darn thing, and they finally found it. But it was anchored right next to the boat we came home on. His name was John L. Sullivan. It was a Kaiser-built ship.
Right.
We had 500 guys on it. And we were coming down through the English Channel, and everybody got seasick. And we were seasick for 16 days. Oh my God.
Right. Did you get seasick on the way over?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
That
the
was a big
bigger
boat.
ship was better? Yeah.
Big boat.
All right.
But coming back, man, that deep in the head, I guess they call it, in the between
Yeah. Okay. Now,
5 high.
yeah. Now, in Germany there after the war, did you see a lot of evidence of the bombing and all of the stuff that happened? Like, was Bremerhaven
Well, I
damaged?
saw that city. It's
Yeah.
a pretty good
Yeah.
town too. And another thing about Germany, I saw a guy driving his car. This is no lie. He had a wood burner on the back of his truck, and he was running his car on that. And a lot of these guys had great big gas sacks on the top of their cars, running it. Why can't we do something like that, you know? That's true.
Oh. Yeah, well, pollution, I suppose, is the problem. But yeah, but they had to do that because they didn't have much in the way of fuel. Now,
Well.
you spent several months in Germany after the war ended. Did you have any?
No, I came. It ended
In May.
yeah. And I had to wait to come home.
Right. And so were you just sitting around and waiting?
Just walking.
walking.
Oh, they had us close order drill. You know, we had to keep them trim.
Right.
And we could never eat the German vegetables. And where we stayed in Schotten, here the Germans are shooting rockets. And the people in Schotten, they're going through the wood picking up sticks to make rooms out of, you know? And the Germans are shooting rockets, you know what I mean? And then they had a farm, big farm. And it was a concrete like this. In the middle was a drain, like this. And everything from the house, toilet, and the cows and everything went into this. Then they stirred it all up. Then they'd put it in a big tank wagon and take it up on the field and spray it. And geez, those potatoes would go up like this. But we couldn't. And they had the biggest steam engines I ever saw. They had, Snow White had a 40-acre field with one of those things on each side. I think it was 8 plows. They'd move it over and the other one would pull it back, honest. That was the biggest thing. And then the engines, our company, yeah, that cannon we took. I got pictures of that. We found a little village, I don't know where it was, but there was a great big barn in it. Wondered what was in the barn. Here's this great big cannon. And I got pictures of it. And they had even the tracks, camouflage, you couldn't even see where the tracks were, you know. Another thing too, we captured another outfit, had the payroll, and I had a suitcase full of German marks, and I gave it to the company commander. Today it's probably worth, it's no lie either, see.
Yeah.
Things happen fast.
I guess you were just too honest.
I've been around,
Yeah. All right.
but I often wonder so many times, what am I doing here? That's the thing.
All right. Now.
And my best buddy, I had a lot of close shaves. There's hedgerows. We were riding behind a hedgerow, and a sniper peeled a great big hunk of bark off that hedgerow between my head and that hedgerow. The guy, what was his name? He got him. The sniper got him, and the last thing he said was, "Oh shit." I was there when they died. And that's the last thing he said. Yep. And then my other buddy, Lee Lyons.
Lee Lyons.
He got hit with shrapnel from and I saw him in the middle of a field waving at me, you know. He got hit in the shoulder.
But they got together.
The last time I saw him, 25 years later, we called on him, and we call him Pappy. And my wife and I are the only ones that called him Pappy, he and his wife. 25 years later, we went to Houston. He was living. And my wife called him up. She says, "Is Pappy there?" And he said, "Those Timmermans are here." How about that? 25 years. Yeah, okay.
Now, was he older than you?
Yes, 1 year.
Okay. Do you know what the age limit was for getting drafted? How old could you be and get drafted?
Well, I was 29.
Yeah.
I was 36, wasn't it, I think? I don't remember what age it was.
Yeah, I guess I think it changed during the war, but for a while 29 was the limit. All right. Now, were you older than some of your officers?
Yes.
Now,
And I had the only car. See, I had the only car in the company. And I think that had a lot to do with what you know what I mean? And the first sergeant rode with me every night, and one of the lieutenants, and every night the first sergeant had a bundle. I often wondered what it was. One night you forgot it. It was a great big hunk of meat. They had stole, I'd have been responsible for that. I told him about it. And he didn't want to lose his job. He didn't want to lose his ride. You know? So he could have. I told him you couldn't ride with me anymore because I don't want to get. I'd be responsible for that. It was my car.
Was that in Germany?
I was here
Or
only
back
taking
in-
basic training.
Back in basic training. Okay.
Yeah, and that was in Camp Butner.
All right. So what did he have the meat for? Was he going to sell it? Was he going to sell it someplace
Where
or?
do I know? I didn't ask him. He's a first sergeant. You don't ask a first sergeant. But it wound up, he was a tough little guy in the States, but when he went overseas, he was the world's fastest foxhole digger. He could have three shovelfuls of sand in the air at one time, you know what I mean? That's the kind of a guy he was.
All right.
He had this bunch of, stripes on his arm.
Okay. What were your officers like? You worked for lieutenants, or what were they like?
Oh, nice guys. One of them was cocky, redhead.
All
He
younger?
wanted to use my car one night, and I said no. But as a rule, they're pretty good.
And how did they do when you actually got into the fighting?
I didn't get it.
Well, when you got into the fighting over in Germany, did the
Well, we had
officers
a
do well?
change. Like I said, I had 7 platoon leaders. Some of them I never, all I said hello to, and then I never saw them again.
Okay. What happened to them?
They didn't make it. That's all I can say.
7.
That's what I said. What am I doing here? See?
Yeah. So by the time the war ended, were you about the senior sergeant left, or was your first sergeant still there?
No, he was long gone. Well, my assistant squad leader wound up first sergeant. I could have been first sergeant if I'd have stayed another year, but I didn't. I was married. I wanted to come home.
Right.
So my Leo Gable, his name was, he was my assistant squad leader, and he was a Sharpie too. And he went all the way through with me, and he was a first sergeant when I left.
All right. Now, when you finally got home, what did you do after you got home?
Bought the tavern.
All right.
Resort in town.
I had the chance to take the East Coast with my company, steeding company, installing.
Right.
But I didn't want to live out of a suitcase. That's what you do on the road.
Right.
And I was married, and I wouldn't have had him. That's my son.
Okay. And so then, how long did you work in the tavern?
61 years. Oh no, we sold the tavern. 16 years we had the tavern. Then I got to be township supervisor, and when I was in the tavern, I was the president of the school board, and everybody said, "What's a tavern owner doing in the school board?" And we had $50,000 in the bank when we consolidated.
All right. Now, if you look back at the time you spent in the Army, how do you think that affected you? How did being in the Army maybe change the way you think, or are you just the same guy?
I'm still me.
Now, do you think that's because you were already older and you knew who you were and what you were doing? Because you said that the Army took a lot of the babies, took a lot of the young men, and helped them grow up. Because you were talking about the training, you said the guys you were training with were babies, and then they grew
Well,
up.
it didn't hurt any of them, I'll tell you that. And afterwards, after we all joined this organization, I got letters back from some of my old boys. And I got a letter from some guy he was an attorney in Chicago, and he said, "You ever get in trouble in Chicago, look me up." So he didn't forget me, I think I still got the letter someplace.
Now, are there other things about the time you were in the Army, things you remember that come back to you that you haven't mentioned here yet?
Well, I saw, remember Gypsy Rose Lee? She looked like a witch when she wasn't dolled up. I saw her when she got out of the taxi to go into the place to get dressed up. You'd have to know it was Gypsy Rose Lee,
Now, where were you when that happened? Was that in the States?
Camp Butner.
Okay. Now, when you were in the Army, did you see any USO shows?
No.
Okay. Didn't have entertainment or things like that?
When I was in the service, I worked in the PX. That was $75 a month, something like that.
Now, what did your wife do while you were away? Because you were married when you went in the service.
And
And what did she do while you were gone?
she worked for a dentist, and she met a girl at a bowling and they wound up friends, and that was Dita.
That's sweet.
And they both worked for a dentist. Dita got her the job. And after my wife got sick, I went into the fruit cellar of the house, and she had saved every letter that I sent her from overseas. Those little,
V-mails?
this, like this. I never knew it.
Wow.
And did you give them to Tracy? My
daughter.
granddaughter wanted them. And she saved every letter, and I never knew that,
Now, how often did you write to her?
Oh, I don't know. There was a bunch of them. Whatever chance I get. Even in a hole, I'd write one.
This much.
Yeah.
Shoebox full. Packed in.
And another funny thing, you got that shut off? Well, I can't tell you that. Overseas, coming back. One day on that boat, everybody was seasick, sicker than a pup. And one day I felt pretty good. So I'm walking on the deck, and this sailor comes up to me and says, "Man, you look sick." And I says, "I am sick." He says, "You got a funny lump in your throat?" And I says, "Yeah." Well, he says, "Don't spit that out, that's your asshole." That's true too, see? And that kind of snapped me out of it. So you can turn it back on now. Somebody might get a kick out of that, but not everybody. But that's the truth. That snapped me out of it for a little bit. Yeah, and then we landed in New York, and everybody ordered steak. And I said, "I want a head lettuce, cold head lettuce." The guy says, "You nuts?" I said, "No, I want a cold head lettuce." And after that, I had my steak.
Right. Now, were you in one of those? Were you in a camp there when you landed in New York and you had your lettuce? Were you in a restaurant, or were you in a military base, or?
I can't tell you where
Yeah.
it was.
Because a lot of the guys.
I was discharged from Camp Atterbury in
Right,
Indiana.
right. But I know that at some of the places where people landed in New York.
I think it was Camp Pickett,
Okay.
because that's where that guy was with that bag full of diamonds.
All right. Because in some of these places, they actually had German prisoners of war who didn't
Never
serve
saw
it.
them.
You didn't see them.
No.
No, they did that, I think, in New York and New Jersey.
Oh, I
they
can
had
tell
it.
you something else now. That brings back another memory. After the war was over, Light's Camera was a famous camera outfit. In fact, there's still Lights, Leica camera.
Yeah, there's a
The
Leica
owner
lens
of
on this
Lights.
thing.
We were to guard his plant. Well, he had a bunch of prisoners working for him. And he treated them so good that they respected the guy. Down the street a couple of blocks was Voigtlander, and they were tough with prisoners. So after the war, the prisoners never touched Lights. Anything Lights had, never touched them. But Voigtlander, they had rows and rows of lenses all ready to ship. Somebody went with a ball-peen hammer and went ping, 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 and ruined every damn one of them. Yeah, I saw that too. I saw it.
That was in Germany.
I didn't see him doing this, but I saw the.
It's all the
That
glass.
was Voigtlander, I think was the name of the camera. But this Leica, they never touched his stuff because he was so good to them. And they showed us the living quarters he had for him, and that was nice.
That was in Germany.
So then I traded two cartons of cigarettes for a Leica camera that could catch a hummingbird in flight, and then somebody swiped it off me. I never did get it. But it could have caught they told me that 1500, I think he said 1500. It was a Leica camera. Today, I guess they're pretty valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It certainly can be.
But I think it was a charge of quarters because he was the only guy in there. But how you got to,
Do you remember any other miscellaneous stories or things he's told you
I'm
that?
trying to help him along as we're going.
Did you learn
He hasn't
anything,
really-
Bobby?
Oh yeah. He hasn't really ever told me this much. This is why I wanted to be here and have a
What
recording
else
of it.
can I think of?
Um,
Oh, then afterwards we were sitting in this we were in this small town Shotton. And it was one big house where the boss lived and then all the people around him. And they had the biggest damn oxen, as tall as I was. And they go walking down the street and you get them to stop going, and here these old Germans were going down the street with them damn big oxen, and us guys go, he'd get mad because he'd have to get them going again. See?
Messing with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Covered the dam, covered the bridge, covered the forest.
What else? I'll think of something else. But that one time I walked down that main street, or one street, where all those buildings were flat.
Mm-hmm.
But every building had a crepe on it for who was in it.
Right.
I think we got a picture of that too, by the way.
All right. Well, I think you've done a pretty good job here of telling us your story. We've got a lot of good things in here, a lot of things people will look at or want to use.
Let's see, what else? Oh, the Eiffel Tower. Oh, I drove a
3-day pass?
3-day pass to Paris.
Okay.
It wound up a week or better.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave us ODs that had been through the laundry, and Christ, they come up like this, you know, woolen shrink.
Right.
So I walked in at some big hotel in Paris to take a shower. And here walks a guy from the Air Force with a brand new outfit on, my size.
Mm-hmm.
It fit me, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I was in Paris with a stolen Paris. And I went to, impressed me most was Napoleon's tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me he had an illegitimate son when the French had him in the back room. But when the Germans got there, they had him next to his father. And I don't know how many people know that either. But then I found when I went through the Arc of Triumph, every Frenchman took his hat off. That was right after the war.
Mm-hmm.
Every Frenchman took his hat off walking through because I stood there and watched them,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But the Eiffel Tower was off limits. We couldn't get anywhere near that.
Now, why were you able to stay in Paris for a week instead of 3 days?
That's what the Army.
Oh, they changed
That's
their
the way
mind?
the Army operates, you know. Hurry and wait.
Mm-hmm.
But right off the bat, they give you those ODs that have been through the laundry, and in case they came up like this, you know. So I had my eyes open, and I found one. Yeah, well, so,
Yeah, well, the Air Force guy can always get a new one.
yeah, they got another one anyway.
Yep.
And what else?
Any other prompting questions? You're kind of out
Well,
there.
he's done a pretty good job. At
He's
least
done a great
we're going to get here.
What I told you is no lie, I tell you that.
All right. Now, I guess the other question I would have is, when you were in places like the Hurtgen Forest or Germany and so forth during the war, did you have any idea of what you were supposed to be doing or why you were there? Or did you just do what they told you to
Just
do?
did your followed orders.
Mm-hmm.
Get ready to move in 5 minutes, and 2 hours, you're still sitting there, you know. And then another thing too, toward the end they had those little biplanes. They could spot artillery. They could spot mortars and stuff.
Right.
You know. And we were pretty safe because those planes were flying around. Look.
Mm-hmm.
So my BAR man, the engineer from MIT, he had cooties jumping. What do you call it?
Lice? Or fleas?
crabs.
Or
Crabs?
rats?
Well, anyway, I told him take his underwear, wash his underwear, you know, and get rid of them. got his underwear and all wet, and we had to move in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, put the damn thing on, your body will dry it. It did. His body, he dried it. It's better not having any.
Mm-hmm.
Yelping dandruff, that's what they call them. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, do you remember seeing many aircraft, American or German?
The ninth Luftwaffe, They had, that was the 9th Air Force, but they shot at us more than they did the Germans.
Okay. Because they were the tactical
Well,
support.
they used to
yeah.
give us orange things to put on the top of your trucks. Well, so did the Germans. You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Then, 50 years later, I often wondered why I never got an overcoat. Damn near froze, you know. 50 years later, at the condo we were staying in Florida, I met a guy who was in a cannon company in 78th Division, but that's way back there someplace. And I says, I often wondered why we never got an overcoat. He says, well, I can tell you why you never got an overcoat. And I says, oh, why? Well, he says, we were ordered to shoot anybody in an overcoat because the Germans were wearing them. How about that? It took me 50 years to find out what, oh, I never got an overcoat. Then after the war, we got overcoats. I was discharged in an overcoat. But that's what he told me, 50 years later.
All right. Okay. Well, the tape here is done, so I have to stop.
I run out of gas.